Let's talk. Shall we first talk about the missing attacker, the chemical attacker? Because it seems incredible to me that the police, first of all, didn't give out his description the first night. Second day, they gave out a description, and it was clear that he'd had some kind of terrible injury. Suddenly, they're now saying, well, we don't know where he is. We've got no way of catching him. It seems extraordinary, doesn't it?
I'm wondering if he made himself an omelette outside of MI6, you know, he went and got himself some eggs, he was back and forth.
I mean, he could have done.
This is somebody with such a distinguishing feature, almost like a Bond villain himself.
Yeah.
Although what is more disturbing is the fact that this woman is lying in critical care with 2 children, and there needs to be justice out there.
Yeah.
And he's
also another case of somebody who should have been deported.
Exactly.
They've spoken, I think somebody's spoken to, I'm not sure exactly where I read this, but they've spoken to his victim from Newcastle.
But he was given asylum. The church, a member of the church vouched for him.
Yes.
He was given asylum.
But this is after he was done for sexual offences,
which is very concerning and once again raises questions about our justice system, how we treat women and how we treat sexual assault and sexual offences. Are they taken seriously? Are we ever going to get above the conviction rate of 1%? With cases like this and sloppy work and, you know, pictures not being released on time, I don't really know how things are going to progress.
Yeah. I mean, it seems extraordinary, doesn't it?
Well, it's interesting in your introduction you talk about the fact that, I mean, the most surveilled city, London, there's no street you can go down in London where you're not being captured by a dash cam or a CCTV or whatever. And this is the most
my car never gets missed if it goes down the one-way street the wrong way or parks in a place that's not supposed to be parked.
But this is the latest in a long string of sort of missing person, whether they're sort of supposed victims or alleged perpetrators, and that the police can't get a handle on. It seems to it's an advert for police incompetence at this point. And you know, as you've already said, the link with domestic violence. You know, the fact that he previously knew the woman, that they were in a relationship, brings back the kind of memories
from Newcastle, obviously for a particular reason, and whether it went wrong and he then decided to attack her, or whether he came down with the intent to attack her, he shouldn't even be in the country.
Well, it's never the first time as well. I mean, when something makes the news that it's so egregious that we all hear about it, you think, well, what has this person done before? Because there's always a long string of offences.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the same with the guy who had the crossbow outside someone's house in South East London. Guess what? He'd stalked someone for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's never the first time before there's this escalation. And it just seems like people don't get on top of it earlier until it gets worse and worse and worse and worse.
Yeah. And that is the problem here. I mean, they should have surely a hard and fast rule, which isn't that difficult. If you're found guilty of an offence, particularly a sexual offence, if you wanted to, you know, delineate them, you cannot possibly get asylum in this country.
But it's opaque, the process. What goes on? Like, how do they weigh things? I mean, you know, people do report that they say, well, even though they have done that, they'd still be in danger, so I choose to weight that higher. But obviously the public are saying, no, we don't want you to do that.
Yeah.
But no one's ever held accountable for it.
And it's always people say, oh, well, we made mistakes and, you know, we'll learn from lessons and, you know, we won't do it again. But then they do it again.
But this is what happened with Clare's Law. The law brought in place to protect victims of domestic violence, named after a woman who was killed by domestic violence.
Yeah.
I asked a police officer, do you allow women to access information if they've had several calls about an abusive male? And they said no, only when a conviction is made. As we know, the conviction rate is far less than the rate of reporting and the rate of incidents. Therefore, is it just, you know, shop front dressing?
Yeah, I mean, it's not working, that's for sure.